I realized at that moment, if I didn't get out, likely I wouldn't be found alive.
For Bill McDermott, the biggest challenge of his career has come not in the marketplace or the boardroom, but as a result of a domestic accident. In 2015, when McDermott had already been chief executive of German software giant SAP for 5 years, he suffered a potentially catastrophic setback.
Tell us what happened. I'm sure you've told this before, but...
On one of those perfect days, my dad's birthday, we had a wonderful day, played golf, had a little birthday cake, the day was wrapped up, everything perfect. And in the middle of the night, with a glass of water, I slipped down a flight of stairs. By the time I got to the bottom of the stairs, the glass was between a concrete foundation and my face. I was knocked unconscious. I was by myself. There was no one there. And after a very long period of time where I was unconscious, I woke, not even realizing what happened to me, just that I knew I couldn't see because there was so much blood in the scene, and I was hurt. I knew I was very badly hurt.
What was your feeling as you lay there? What was your first thought?
Well, first of all, what happened? What happened?
Right.
You know, because among other things, one of the things that was not, so commonly known is I obviously had a bad concussion. And I didn't know what happened. And I realized that if I did get up, life was probably going to get a whole lot tougher on me. And at that time, you start thinking about survival, think about your family.
Was there a point, do you feel, that when you might have given up?
There was a point where I knew that I had to make a break for it. At that moment, you were either going to call it a day or you were going to make a fight to get out. Because I realized at that moment, if I didn't get out, I wouldn't be found alive.
McDermott underwent several surgeries, but ultimately lost an eye as a result of his fall.
What at this point during this period did you feel about coming back to SAP? Because other people might have said, this is now my life, I'm going to have to change course.
Sure.
Was that ever a sense that you had?
At that point, you put your trust in the medical professionals, and you put your trust in God, and you know that what's meant to be will come of this. And I had great confidence, and I never really thought about the downside. I just thought, I'm going to come out of this surgery and I'm going to see and everything's going to be fine. It never entered my mind that I wouldn't. That's how I think. Between the intensive care and getting out of that hospital before I went into others, I was missing a board meeting. And the first thing I did when I got to my home is I called up the board and the chairman of the board, now we're in like day 8 or 9, I guess, to say, I will be there at our next board meeting, which this was July, and the next board meeting would be October in Germany. So mark it down, big crayon, I'll be there.
So you never had any doubt that you were going to go back?
It never even remotely entered my mind that I wasn't coming back.
It was 3 months, I think, roughly before SAP declared the details of the accident, although they declared that you'd had an accident.
Sure.
Was that a difficult decision not to give more details sooner?
The reality is, when I got out of the first hospital stay, after that first little over a week, I was in full command of my daily activities at SAP. Full command. The only thing that I wasn't doing at the level I used to do it was going on flights, because I would typically have a surgery in the morning and then be out in the afternoon and then be back to the phones and all the things that I've done. There was not a day where I wasn't working as the CEO of SAP. There really wasn't anything to report. Once we got past the hard part, which was that first week, we were good.
There was never any moment when you had to activate a succession plan or anything of that sort?
No.
It was not life-threatening in that once you got to the first responder?
Once I got past that first night, I was going to live. The whole thing at that point was there was no one covering for me, there was no one acting for me, and there was no succession planning necessary. I was in the job.
Has it changed the way you lead SAP, do you think?
I think it has, and it's tough to put my finger on exactly what's different, but I think what is quite beautiful about the whole experience is that a lot of people who might have felt like my life was even too perfect, or maybe even I was a little too perfect, have now seen that he's real. And he can get cut and he bleeds and he hurts just like all of us. And he's one of us. He's a human being. And just the fact that they saw that I'm the same guy, and I want their success and all of our dreams to come true even more than I used to.
Did it change the way in which people react to you, or the way in which you felt about those people, their reaction?
Maybe I just, lightened it up a little bit more. For example, don't feel bad for me. I got a new eye, and it's the same color as the old one. Just keeping it light. I mean, I think the humanity and the kindness of people is so beautiful. And it's so wonderful to have people that actually do care about you.
Long before the accident, McDermott learnt his people skills as a budding entrepreneur.
I was one of those kids that got a great deal of self-confidence from work. So I had 3 part-time jobs, and I basically traded them in for one more than full-time job, meaning any hour I wasn't at school, I was at that local delicatessen. And I started working there and then ultimately bought that store as a teenage entrepreneur.
So you moved on ultimately from there to Xerox. You became the youngest divisional head at Xerox at the time, I think. How would you describe your leadership style there? Was it different from how you lead now?
Not at all. In fact, the amazing thing about my life and who I am is I'm the same guy I was in the delicatessen as I am sitting before you today. I loved my job at Xerox, just like I love my job at SAP, just like I loved my job running that delicatessen.
McDermott is astonishingly positive about the impact of his accident.
I feel in some ways that my life actually took on a higher purpose, because I'm not just an underdog that made it, if you want to call it that, to the corner office, the book Corner Store to Corner Office. But I'm also a person that had to fight to keep it. From the bottom of my heart, if you said, Bill, could we rewind the tape to July 2nd, 2015 and play that day out differently, I really would not change a thing, because I've gotten so much from the experience, and most importantly, I feel like I've been able to give so much of myself from the experience that I feel like my life has had a greater sense of impact because of it. So
you surely wouldn't put yourself through the accident again in order to
I would
experience
prefer.
that.
I would prefer not to have gone
There was
through
a dark moment there when you were lying at the bottom of the stairs.
Oh, it was. But you know what's interesting is when you're at that moment and you stare your greatest fears down, and you realize that there are some things about life that have never been in your control in the first place.